I think that the current environment has a great sense of change, but when I discuss that with colleagues and other organisations and within Resthaven, we remind ourselves that aged care, as with many aspects of society, is inevitably involved in change. It's an ongoing process. And we've been particularly focused on exploring innovation and learning and sharing with each other on areas in relation to higher performance of quality, of governance, and ensuring good financial management and acumen. Aged care has been classified or categorised within a cottage sector type framework by many people not involved in the sector. The reality is, over many years now, there's been very sophisticated development of a mature aged care system, and organisations are operating with mature development in the governance, in their approach to quality systems, and also in relation to their financial management. Having said that, it's a diverse sector, and we all have histories that reflect the uniqueness of where we started. And there are particular issues and needs in different aspects of the aged care system. And in terms of moving the system forward, we would emphasise that high performance in governance, quality and financial management are the key areas we must focus ourselves upon. I think any time you're identifying or defining the particular changes in the environment you're working in, it's really important that you consider those against your purpose, your mission and your values, and where you then fit with that. In essence, for us, it's about how we continue the good work we do, and that we acknowledge the good work many in the aged care sector do, and how we all can move together in adjustments to the systems that government are employing for those services to be delivered. We've lived in systems that are highly regulated, and that level of regulation is not required. In fact, actually impedes at times good innovation and improvement. The reform focus on choice and consumer control, individual control of the outcomes of their particular services, is an area we have to move our business systems in terms of how governments have funded us before, and how our practices have evolved that reflect particular regulations. The challenge for us, I think, in 2017 is reaffirming our purpose, reaffirming that we have always been interested in quality of service and working with individuals with respect to their quality of life, and understanding how with different business systems and a different funding model that we will continue that purpose. It's really a different environment that we're moving into when we think about how individuals will identify where they wish to have their services provided, or with whom they want to work with for a service to be provided. Historically, organisations like Resthaven have been awarded packages in a competitive round called the Aged Care Funding Round, and in relation to those historic processes, consumers have had to find whether we have a particular vacancy or not. The key emphasis in the change is the consumer will actually be holding their package, and they'll be choosing through the My Aged Care website process. They'll be choosing through that process that My Aged Care have established who they wish to have that service provided by, and who they wish to work with. I think it's a large change in that it repositions how we normally have clients or customers come into our programs. I think that's a significant change, and we don't have magic answers in terms of how we will fare in that respect. However, we remind ourselves that we've been involved in working with older people for some 80 years now. We remind ourselves that that's a core element of why we exist, And we would see ourselves, and it's important that we are indicative of the type of service that individuals have choices to consider in relation to their particular needs. That individuals will have a choice of where they will position money that's available to them in terms of particular choices and needs that they wish to have to sustain their quality of life. And the whole sector has been moving towards the system changes that are occurring in 2017. The elements of, for example, in the home care package area, the elements of individual budgets matters we've been working on over the last 3 years and adjusting to the business systems that are required for that. So in terms of our board, we're ensuring that the board has similar awareness to the management. I think that's an important element, that boards are aware of what the changes are. The first element is the board needs to be actively engaged and be undertaking good governance, and to really have a goal that their position is critical to the organisation's past and future survival and ability to serve the communities they wish to serve. Genuine commitment by board members is there, and they have skills themselves, but the issue is the breadth and the range of skills that they may require from time to time. They need to be investing with their senior management an awareness, developing an awareness of what the changes are to their business systems. So boards should be aware that there's been changes to the requirements, the reporting requirements, and what the obligations are, that if you're going to be in this service environment, what obligations do you have to report to government and what those reporting obligations are. The obligation now for an aged care provider is to be a provider of choice for those individuals, because they will have the control and the power to decide who their service will be provided by. That is a complex element, and boards need to be aware how that will affect them in their particular location and their particular environment. That there'll be greater choice for consumers and greater competition in terms of pricing of services, so that the consumer gets the best and most efficient outcome for the dollar that's available for them. There needs to be a greater understanding as we move out of some of the ways in which we've been previously funded to provide services in which we hold the money. They need to move towards a better understanding of the actual detail of their service and how their labour is priced. And because in essence a lot of the reforms are about moving organisations to be able to charge on an hourly rate. Service providers and their boards need to have a better understanding of what their charging rate is, and for a number of organisations I would predict that is an area that needs more work. There is ongoing increasing demand for services that are projected. We are still focused on ensuring that there is quality in the service that we're offering. One of the areas that remains important, irrespective of the particular mechanics of the reforms, is the element of sustaining a workforce that's available to meet the demand of services that are evolving in aged care. Workforce has been a critical element of the aged care service environment for many years in terms of the issue of demand and supply, and it will continue to be a critical element in the future. That their workforce is actually re-skilled to respond to a different service environment. The sector is not as attuned to the broader commercial elements of billable hours and time is money in terms of an organisation surviving. Like in many sectors, we've got to be very careful that boards are not just focused on financial KPIs and financial outcomes. Will their key performance indicators from a financial perspective be the same in the future? And they won't be. They will change. Boards need to understand that in terms of other KPIs, in terms of a more balanced scorecard approach, that they should be actively understanding the business from various perspectives. Boards now need to create their own key performance indicators related to their clients, their consumers. it's that self-ownership that the organisation moves to a culture where they are not just responding to the regulatory minimum outcomes of quality, but they see that as a key benchmark of a minimum outcome, but they are actively, continually seeking to develop better outcomes, and that they are reflective of the individual's choices and needs. And not wishing to imply there are magic answers out there, and it's a real journey. I think it's the main issue that you need to get started. You need to understand these things take time to evolve from whatever point you are starting from. The prominence of good governance is the starting point, that you have a board, you have an oversight committee that is leading the organisation in its strategic outcomes. The board and senior management need to be working closely together with respect to where they will position themselves in terms of sustaining their service in the community that they are operating in, and not underestimate that there will be differences in the nature of choice that individuals will make with respect to who they want to be the provider of their service. We still have a period of time before February 2017 where we should give particular focus to ensuring that our services are responding to the needs of the individuals within the program, and ensure that that knowledge and that insight will inform those groups about the types of needs and the types of choices people will be seeking out when they have that choice to either allocate their service to you or not. They would include the business systems that are currently reflective of the previous requirements and how they need to be adjusted. They would include, have they got a sufficiently rigorous financial management system? Are they operating under accrual accounting processes throughout the year and not leaving adjustments to the end of the year, so they can accurately consider where they are positioned at a time of change? Billable processes, charging rates is how income will be generated. That's a different type of income generation in terms of it being in arrears than current grant-based income processes, and that would require a significant adjustment period and working towards an ability to sustain such an adjustment period in terms of their cash flows when those changes occur. The board continuing to have a mind to our obligations today and the relationships we have today with consumers, and ensuring that we're meeting those obligations, yet at the same time having regard to how we're preparing for a changing environment and how we're particularly giving energy to those elements as well at the same time, and meeting both those aspects at the one time. And they want to know how our brand is going in terms of what are matters that would be a significant risk to us. What would be a great challenge to our particular our purpose, our historic purpose? It's regular discussion of those matters. And when I say regular, I am aware over the years some boards meet once every 3 months or 4 months, and I would have assumed that in a time of great change that boards would be reviewing how often they're meeting and how regularly they're meeting. And how they're balancing their time between the obligations of the business today and the service today in meeting its purpose, with the need for the business to be adjusted, and how they manage their time and ensure they're giving balanced time to both areas and ensuring their strategic intent in the future is being achieved. So we're actually dealing with people in our business, and always have, that are challenged by great change and how we adjust to great change. And we can learn a lot in terms of the great ability and resilience that older people have to move through stages in life of change, and then seek out and continue to seek out and sustain their quality of life. The Australian aged care system as it is now, and the diversity of need that is indicative of that system when we think about special need groups, we think about examples such as CALD, we think about culturally diverse, linguistically diverse individuals. If we think about regional remote elements of that diversity, and how the future ensures that those individuals have a choice within how their services will be provided and the manner in which they want them provided. So the element of diversity, I think, is very important as a service provider, and how we can ensure we contribute to maintaining diversity of choice for people in their location, and particularly in remaining home for as long as they can. Historically, we tend to have a number of services lumped together in different programs in the way we deliver those services. I think one of the challenges we have in terms of adjusting to February 2017 is ensuring we understand how our services are better defined as individual service elements. I suspect there are elements of those services that are less financially sustainable than others. And so one of the challenges we have is to understand in detail which parts of the service element that we provide are sustainable as we provide them today, and which are not as sustainable. It's up for individual organisations to then identify, are there certain services that will always be difficult with respect to their sustainability, but make deliberate decisions in terms of their mission and their purpose as to how they will support those or cross-subsidise those. That's a different focus than not being aware of why a service is struggling in a new environment that we're moving towards, because you haven't broken down the elements of the service and which elements of those services you are particularly sustainable with, and which of those elements are particularly higher cost in the way you're providing them at that time, and therefore not managing them because you haven't actually undertaken that process and exercise.